Upon my return from overseas studies, Aunt had prepared an elaborate feast to welcome me home, while Uncle cordially extended an invitation for me to rejoin the family business. Before I could properly appreciate their warmth, my cousin and his wife interjected joining the company was acceptable, but only if I started as an intern. I'm not accustomed to outsiders living under this roof. He should find his own accommodation, my cousin declared, leaving Uncle and Aunt in stiff silence. I frowned at them, thinking this house belongs to me. The company is mine. What absurdity is he speaking? On my graduation day when I arrived home, the facial recognition failed. Even the passcode was rejected. I had to ring the doorbell repeatedly before my cousin's wife finally rushed to answer, barefoot and visibly irritated. Aren't you old enough to announce your visits? Who just shows up unannounced? Before I could respond, Aunt hurried over, wiping her hands on her apron, her face brightening. Xiaoya, you're back. Look at you so thin. I always said you weren't eating properly abroad. Come inside, come inside. Her effusive welcome momentarily dispelled my unease. As I stepped in, the dining table groaned under a lavish spread. I woke early to shop at the market, Aunt said proudly. Everything here is your favorite. Uncle eagerly took my luggage, smiling. Let me put this away for you. Nonsensory home now. Our princess shouldn't lift a finger. Flushing slightly, I murmured. Thank you, Uncle. Aunt immediately began fussing over me, while my cousin's wife rolled her eyes and stalked upstairs, muttering, the cuckoo in the nest. Freeloading, utterly shameless. Though I caught only fragments, shameless rang clear. Auntie, I asked, who was she referring to? With an awkward laugh, Aunt drew me into the kitchen and whispered, some of her relatives have been staying. She's been in a mood, pay her no mind. Her eyes reddened. Seeing her distress, I softened. If they're decent people, a short stay is fine. There's plenty of space. Tell her not to be petty, weary family, after all. The villa had been my 18th birthday gift. My parents never saw it completed, both passed while I was abroad. When Aunt's family asked to move in, I agreed. They'd cared for Mother during her illness. So, aside from my master suite, the 500 square meter house accommodated them comfortably. Aunt brightened at my words. Just then, Uncle returned and summoned everyone to dinner. My cousin and his wife ate in silence, while Aunt and Uncle heaped delicacies onto my plate. Amid the cheerful atmosphere, I mentioned my plans. I'll handle company formalities soon. Can't remain idle indefinitely. Uncle's smile faltered momentarily before he waved a hand. Naturally. Akuan will assist you ensure HR arranges everything properly. We've had some undesirable elements join recently, he added. No one shall take advantage of you. Before I could decline, my cousin cut in coldly. Let's be clear, no special treatment. If she joins, she starts at entry level. And in turn, I the majority shareholder? Uncle slammed the table. Enough. You will support your cousin. All these years abroad, I've been making executive decisions for the domestic operations remotely, I stated, watching my cousin's countenance darken with visible displeasure. Let's establish this clearly, father, he interjected sharply. Our company doesn't entertain favoritism. She may join, but only through the proper channels, starting as an intern. I stood momentarily stunned. Me, the principal shareholder, expected to begin as an intern? Uncle's hand came down sharply on his head before I could respond. What preposterous nonsense! Uncle rebuked. His features contorted in anger. Xiaoya is family. Since when does protecting your younger sister require negotiation? He cut off my cousin's attempted rebuttal, as his wife slammed her chopsticks violently onto the table. How utterly absurd. Our precious foreign-educated Xiaoya surely can't be expected to actually work? And must she really impose on our household? Her gaze burned with hostility. I refuse to accommodate outsiders, not even domestic staff. And he certainly has no place here. Their audacious presumption left me momentarily speechless. This villa is mine. The company belongs to me. Do they truly not comprehend where the legal ownership lies? You're absolutely correct, I replied with icy precision. Outsiders most certainly should vacate. As I prepared to continue, Aunt urgently grasped my arm. Li Sisi, either retract that immediately or remove yourself, she hissed sharply, then turned to me with imploring eyes. Pay no heed, Xiaoya. This has always been your home. Indeed, you're our treasured daughter, Uncle affirmed with forced composure, simultaneously delivering a sharp kick to my cousin's chair. Take your intolerable wife and leave this instant. The couple stormed out, the heavy door crashing shut with finality behind them, reducing what should have been a celebratory homecoming to ruins. Xiaoya, don't take it to heart, Aunt soothed. Your sister-in-law isn't herself today. This is your home, no one can take that from you. Uncle, ever the peacemaker, forced a conciliatory smile. That's right, Xiaoya. You mustn't upset yourself, Yuri, the jewel of this family. No sooner had he spoken than he delivered a sharp kick to my cousin's chair. "Take your disgraceful wife and get out of my sight." The couple, though seething with indignation, dared not direct their fury at their elders. Instead of retreating upstairs, they stormed out of the house altogether. The front door slammed with such violence that the walls trembled, bringing the ill-fated homecoming dinner to an abrupt and bitter end. Bewildered, I turned to my memories for answers. That year had claimed both my parents' father instantly in the crash, mother after a prolonged and painful decline. Trapped overseas by my studies, I had been desperate to return, to care for her myself only to be gently but firmly dissuaded by aunt and uncle. What good would it do? Aunt had reasoned. "You're no nurse. Let me tend to her with the time and the patience." And she had, with a devotion that shamed professional caretakers. I still remember walking in once to find her changing soiled linens, her hands steady, her expression free of disgust. Thanks to her, mother had remained dignified to the end, her body clean, her spirit unbroken despite the year-long confinement to that hospital bed. Though I compensated aunt handsomely far beyond any nurse's wages, some services transcend monetary value. The debt I owe her is one no currency could ever settle. Therefore, when my uncle and aunt offered to take care of the villa on my behalf, I readily agreed without a second thought. After all, we were family, and since I was abroad and the house would otherwise stand empty, I let their entire family move in. Little did I anticipate that I would now be the one facing eviction. My sister-in-law, who had been married into the family for less than 2 years, could perhaps be excused for not knowing that the villa was mine. But what was the deal with the company? It was painstakingly built from the ground up by my parents, evolving from a humble street-side store into an enterprise employing hundreds of people. My uncle, lacking in ambition and ability, was given a position by my parents when they were alive out of a sense of familial duty, ensuring he wanted for nothing. Just 2 years ago, I was the one approving the documents when my cousin joined the company. So how had the tables turned to the point where my cousin was now dictating that I start as an intern? My uncle smiled obsequiously as he tried to explain. "Your cousin has been bullied at the company these past 2 years. He's worried that if you join suddenly, those crafty ultimers will take advantage of you too." My aunt, with a sorrowful expression, wiped away her tears and added, "Xiaoya, it was my fault. Your sister-in-law's family said they wouldn't agree to the marriage unless she lived here. You know your uncle and I didn't have the money to buy another place. Please, Xiaoya, don't reveal the truth for now. I promise I'll tell her the truth as soon as possible. Consider it a favor for your aunt." While the matter of the house could be discussed, I was determined to join the company. It was my parents' legacy, and I couldn't simply abandon it. My uncle and aunt agreed, but when I returned to my room, I was shocked to find that the master bedroom had been occupied. The villa's renovation had been designed according to my mother's blueprints, with every detail reflecting her love for me. The master bedroom was her crowning achievement, and even the furniture had been handpicked by her. Sadly, they never got to see the finished product. When my uncle and aunt moved in, I specifically told them that they could choose any room except the master bedroom. But now, someone had brazenly taken up residence there. Large photo frames filled the space, and the decor had been altered. The overpowering scent of perfume hit me as soon as I entered, almost making me gag. I trembled with rage, and as I turned around, my aunt suddenly fell to her knees before me. "Xiaoya, please listen to me. Your sister-in-law insisted on living in this room for the wedding. If we didn't agree, the wedding would be called off. Xiaoya, have pity on your aunt. It wasn't easy for your cousin to find a wife. We've spent all our savings. If she leaves, we'll lose everything." As she spoke through her sobs, my uncle too let out a heavy sigh. Instead of getting angry, he was more concerned with helping his wife up, being pulled by her sleeve. "Please get up. It's not right for an elder to kneel to me." But my aunt refused to rise, sitting on the floor and continuing to pour out her woes. "Your cousin has always been overly ambitious but lacking in ability. His marriage has drained us. I didn't want to give in, but I had no choice. This is your home, Xiaoya, and I'm so sorry." My uncle wiped his face and added, "When you were abroad, I wanted to tell you, but your aunt wouldn't let me. I should have made a fuss back then. It would have been better than this mess. I've lost all my dignity." Seeing him about to bang his head against the wall, I quickly stopped him. "Uncle, calm down. We can figure this out." I decided to temporarily move to another room. After all, I couldn't drive them to the brink over a single bedroom, but I made it clear that they needed to explain the situation to my sister-in-law as soon as possible. To my dismay, they led me to the attic. "This was arranged by your sister-in-law, but Xiaoya, I promise I'll sort this out. Please bear with it for now." Gritting my teeth in anger, I agreed. "Fine, but only for a month. If you don't want to be the one to break the news, I'll do it myself." Because of my aunt's pleas, I refrained from confronting my sister-in-law, Li Sisi, for the time being. However, she only became more insolent. "Living in someone else's house sure is nice. What a shameless interloper. No wonder the fortune teller at the temple said I'd encounter bad luck this year. Here it is." Busy with my job induction, I ignored her taunts. My uncle and aunt had assured me that they would handle the situation, but at dinner time, Li Sisi removed a chair, saying with a malicious look, "Sorry, there are only 4 chairs we can use. You can stand and eat if you want." I looked at her and asked, "Do you know that I'm the one who orders the food?" During my time abroad, I developed a strong preference for good food. Since my uncle and aunt were frugal, I arranged for high-quality ingredients from a supplier that catered to 5-star hotels. The food was expensive but incredibly fresh and delicious. Li Sisi's face froze, but she retorted, So what? You have the nerve to live in my house. Ever since our previous altercation, she'd been nitpicking at every opportunity. Not wanting to engage with her, I turned to leave, only to see her casually toss a handful of melon seeds on the floor. Sweep the floor before you go. Since you're freeloading, you might as well do some work. I stopped, turned back, and smiled at her. Then I picked up a plate from the table and smashed it on the ground. Soup splattered all over Lee. Before she could react, I shattered the remaining dishes. Lee finally flew into a rage, pointing at me and shouting, "Sun Xiaoya, have you gone crazy?" I calmly replied, "You said I act like a spoiled brat. Now you're seeing the real thing." The commotion alerted my uncle and aunt. "Xiaoya, what's going on?" Ignoring them, I turned to Lee and said, "Oh, and I heard you haven't worked a day. You're living off the Sun family. Remember to sweep the floor before you go back to your room. Since you're freeloading, you might as well earn your keep." Despite her shouts downstairs, I slept soundly that night. During my time abroad, I'd noticed some irregularities in the company's accounts. So, after returning, instead of assuming a high position immediately, I started with basic tasks, keeping my identity a secret. I quickly integrated with the department and, in the process, heard a lot of company gossip. The more I heard, the more concerned I became. I heard the previous boss died in some shady deal. Lucky for us, our current boss saved the company from going under. Yeah, and I heard the previous boss had a daughter, a rebellious type who was into street racing. Our boss is so Kinda's been supporting her abroad. There's no smoke without fire. Over the past few years, my uncle had held the title of general manager, but it was mostly a formality. 2 years ago, when he said he was too old to continue and arranged for my cousin to take over, I didn't object and even increased his share of the profits. But now it seemed they had taken over as if the company were rightfully theirs. Before I could inquire further, I received a call and had to return to the office. I'd asked a friend from one of the big 4 accounting firms to look into the company's real accounts regarding the discrepancies I'd noticed. When the results came back, I was so angry that my hands shook. There were serious problems, with losses amounting to at least tens of millions. My friend also told me, "Xiaoya, your cousin is quite greedy." I sat in my office for a long time grappling with what to do. This was clearly economic crime and couldn't be ignored. Under normal circumstances, I would have called the police immediately. But because it involved my cousin, and out of consideration for my uncle and aunt, who were old and had done so much for our family, I hesitated. I wanted to spare them the shame of their son's misdeeds. One evening I had a meeting but realized I'd left an important document at home. Since I didn't like others using my computer, I decided to retrieve it myself. As I passed my uncle and aunt's room, I heard my aunt scolding my uncle. "I told you Sun Xiaoya is no pushover. She's already checking the accounts. It won't be long before she discovers what you two have done. Don't be so hasty. She's just returned." My aunt retorted, "What's there to wait for? Do you want her to find out about your embezzlement, or that you were behind her parents' death?" These words sent a chill down my spine. My parents have been murdered? I stood there, feeling as if I'd fallen into an icy abyss. Then I heard my once kind uncle speak in a menacing tone. "Stop shouting. Remember, you're the one who killed her mother. We're both in this together." My aunt's voice trembled with guilt. I did it because you told me to." "Enough. Xiaoya gave us a month to vacate the villa. At this rate, she'll send us all to jail before the month is up. I said from the start that this girl was trouble. We should have gotten rid of her when we had the chance, especially after we drugged her mother. It would have been so much simpler." He then added, "Hasn't that driver been released? You should contact him again, offer him some money, and have him get rid of this little bitch." My uncle agreed. In a daze, I made my way to the attic, leaning against the door with my teeth chattering. My parents' deaths were no accident, and I had invited the murderers into my home. Now they were plotting against me. Downstairs, I could hear the cheerful voices of my cousin and his wife as they returned home. They were all ungrateful wretches. I couldn't stay here. I had to find evidence and bring them to justice. But as soon as I went downstairs, Lee stopped me. "Why are you back? Your cousin's in the bathroom." She rolled her eyes at me. "There are rules against leaving work early. Do you think our money grows on trees?" I looked at her, sneered, and said, "Your family's money didn't come from thin air. It was extorted from me and my parents." Startled by my expression, she suddenly stepped closer and said, "Sun Xiaoya, I have some good news. I'm pregnant." Before I could react, she took a step back and deliberately fell to the ground, shouting, "Honey, Sun Xiaoya attacked my stomach. Our baby." My cousin, Sun Jianquan, rushed out of the bathroom, his pants half undone, and punched me in the face. I fell to the side trying to dodge, but he continued to kick me. Lee sat on the ground, smirking maliciously. Summoning all my strength, I kneed him in the groin. He let out a scream and fell to the ground, writhing in pain. Lee rushed to his aid. I, gasping for breath, pressed the emergency call button for the neighborhood security, and then dialed 110. My uncle and aunt also hurried over. My aunt rushed to help Sun Jianquan, asking anxiously, "Are you okay?" My uncle looked at me and asked half-heartedly, "Why did you start fighting? Are you alright, Xiaoya?" Ignoring him, I pointed at Sun Jianquan and told the arriving security guard. He attacked me without provocation. "Please call an ambulance." Since I was the registered owner of the villa in the Xiaoqir system, even though the rest of the family lived there, I was the one who would be protected first in case of an incident. Lee enraged, lunged at me, shouting, "How dare you hurt my husband? I'll kill you, you little bitch." But the security guard stopped her. My aunt wailed, "Xiaoya, we're family. What are you doing?" My uncle tried to send the security guard away, saying, "This is a family matter. You can leave now." The security guard ignored him and I too paid them no heed. Secretly, I turned on my phone's camera had been recording since I overheard their conversation and hadn't stopped. The police and the ambulance arrived almost simultaneously. I calmly explained the situation, stating that I had acted in self-defense. Lee shouted, "Liar! You attacked my stomach first. You're trying to kill me and my baby." Turning to the police, she added, "Officer, you're just in time. This woman attacked my husband and tried to kill me. She's a delinquent who won't leave our house and is trying to steal our property." Her words made me laugh in disbelief, and even the police looked shocked. I looked at her and asked slowly, "You say I'm trying to steal your property? Do you know that I'm the legal owner of this villa?" This revelation left not only Lee but also my uncle and aunt stunned. They were torn between joy at the news of Lee's pregnancy and fear over my alarm. They quickly tried to stop me, but I ignored their pleas. Lee shrieked, "What did you say? How can it be yours? My husband showed me the property deed. Besides, you're just a poor student who's lost both parents." I raised my hand and delivered a resounding slap across his face. "Your parents are alive. Why didn't they teach you to respect others?" The police promptly intervened to separate us. Lee, in a fit of rage, struggled wildly, attempting to lash out at me. She was sharply rebuked by the officers. "Comrade police, she's a liar," she exclaimed indignantly. "Mom, Dad, say something." However, my uncle and aunt remained mute, cowering in silence. I retrieved the property deed from my bag and handed it to the police. "This is the deed to my house. The security guards in the residential complex can also testify that I've always been registered as the property owner." Meeting Lee's incredulous gaze, I added, "And it's not just this villa. The company is mine too. My parents built it from the ground up, and before they passed away, they left a will stating that all the shares were to be entrusted to me. It has nothing to do with your in-laws or your husband. In fact, your entire family has been leeching off me." Stunned by this cascade of revelations, Lee fainted on the spot. She was promptly rushed to the hospital. I informed the police that I refused to reach a settlement and proceeded to undergo a forensic medical examination. When the report was ready, my aunt intercepted me. "Xiaoya, how could you do this? We're family. Why drag this domestic matter to the police station? Please, for my sake, drop the charges." I pushed her hand away. "I'm feeling extremely dizzy. The preliminary diagnosis suggests a concussion. It's better if you don't touch me, or the condition might worsen, and the report will reflect that." When Sun Jianquan insisted on having his own examination, he found nothing amiss, for I had controlled the force of my actions, ensuring no lasting injuries. In contrast, when he attacked me, I deliberately positioned myself to ensure the report showed more severe injuries. I was determined to see him behind bars. The report indicated minor injuries, but as long as I refused to reconcile, he would have to remain in custody. Seeing my unwavering stance, my aunt resorted to her old trick and knelt before me in front of the police. "Xiaoya, I know your brother was impulsive, but we're family. Disagreements are inevitable. Please forgive him just this once." Her act drew a crowd of onlookers. Without hesitation, I sat down on the ground. The doctor said I was lucky to be alive. Otherwise, he would have beaten me to death. "Aunt, I'm grateful for the care you gave my mother, which is why I've been giving you 100,000 yuan every month. I thought it was the least I could do. When you said your house was too small, I let your family live in my 500 square meter villa. When you couldn't afford the hundreds of thousands of yuan in property management, water and electricity fees each year, I covered them. But now they're trying to kick me out, and when I refuse, they beat me like this. I want to forgive them for the sake of family, but does he even consider me family?" My words left my aunt speechless, and the onlookers regarded her with disdain, some even taking out their phones to record the scene. A policewoman approached and helped me up. "We're acting in accordance with the law, not succumbing to moral coercion. Don't you trust the legal system?" I knew exactly what she feared, and I deliberately goaded her. "We can reach a settlement, but he'll be fired from the company. I don't want to work with someone who assaulted me, and you should move out as soon as possible. We shouldn't live under the same roof anymore." My aunt staggered, and upon realizing I was serious, she nodded frantically and scurried away. I didn't idle during my hospital stay. First, I removed Sun Jianquan from his position. When I returned to the company, I took over as the president. The first thing I did was, using my presidential authority, obtain all the project ledgers and details. The employees who had gossiped with me were shocked. Their eyes betrayed a mix of curiosity, fear, and worry, for none had expected that I was the daughter of the former boss they had disparaged as a rebellious girl. Some even anonymously asked if I would seek revenge. I simply smiled and reassured them, "No, thank you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have discovered so quickly that the traitors were within my own family." When my uncle came to see me, I evaded him and deliberately leaked the news that I had uncovered some clues. As expected, in the evening my surveillance device picked up his voice. He was on the phone saying, "Let's meet at the usual place and discuss in detail." I knew the trap had worked. Although the evidence of Sun Jianquan's crimes wasn't comprehensive, it was enough to send him to jail. So, as soon as he was released from detention, he was taken away by a new team of police officers, this time from the criminal police department, in the presence of my uncle and aunt. My aunt collapsed to the ground, wailing and pounding on my uncle. My uncle then came to the company, either to seek revenge or to plead for mercy. "Xiaoya, I didn't have the face to see you, but Akuan is the only male heir in our Sun family. He must have had a tough time these days. He looks gaunt and his hair has turned white. He's already apologized. For my sake, can you forgive him just this once? If Akuan is convicted, his life will be ruined." Minor injuries might not lead to a prison sentence, but economic crimes were a different matter. More importantly, my uncle knew all too well that once Sun Jianquan was in prison, he would surely implicate his own father to reduce his sentence. I looked at my uncle and asked earnestly, "Why didn't you think about your life being ruined when you embezzled company funds? And why didn't you think of my father as your own brother when you deliberately caused the car accident that killed my parents? Isn't that family?" I clenched my fists tightly, struggling to contain my emotions. My uncle was left speechless. Finally, he asked, "What do you want to do to spare him?" I thought for a moment and replied, "Wait until he serves his sentence. One must pay the price for their actions." My uncle simply said, "Okay." Before he left, he said, "Xiaoya, I've treated you well all these years." I didn't respond. Only after he left did my eyes well up with hatred. Treated me well? Did he mean that he spared my life after killing my parents? No, I knew clearly that he had intended to kill me too. On the night of the car accident, I should have been in the car. It was just that a classmate called me at the last minute, and after coaxing my parents into letting me go, I kissed my mother and happily went to meet my friend. If I could turn back time, I would have hugged my father too. I even wished it had been me in that car instead of them. But time couldn't be reversed, and my parents couldn't have died in vain. The culprits had to be punished. Realizing my unyielding resolve, my aunt came to the company and launched a tirade against me. Her facade of kindness shattered, revealing her true, ferocious nature. "Sun Xiaoya, haven't I been good to you all these years? I took care of your mother when she was bedridden. I managed everything at home. My son was wrong to embezzle money, but can't he just return it? How could you send him to prison? You're trying to destroy our family." She raged, but the security guards prevented her from approaching me. I looked at her coldly and retorted, "Didn't I pay you for the care? Haven't you been living in my villa? Did I force him at knife point to embezzle? It was his greed that sent him to prison." As I walked past her, I added, "And by the way, how did my mother really die? Don't you know?" Her face turned pale, and she stared at me in horror. I ignored her and headed to the underground parking lot. I hadn't been living in the villa and had been staying in a hotel, but as soon as I drove out of the company, a delivery van crashed into my car head-in. The deafening impact filled my ears, the airbag deployed, and I was thrown forward, only to be jerked back by the seatbelt. I could smell the metallic tang of blood, my own blood. The police were knocking on the car window. Gasping for breath, I watched as they opened the door and signaled for medical assistance before everything went dark. When I woke up in the hospital ward, the pungent smell of disinfectant filled my nostrils. Every part of my body ached. I pressed the call button with my trembling fingers, and a nurse arrived promptly, accompanied by the police. "How am I?" I croaked. The nurse explained my condition. Besides a severe fracture in my lower leg, I had only minor abrasions. "You're lucky, ma'am," she said. I thanked her, and then I noticed the disapproving look on the police officer's face. "Sun Xiaoya, this was too risky. You were gambling with your life." I smiled weakly, my voice choked with emotion. But I won. It had all been part of my plan. The driver who had caused my parents' car accident had served time in prison for drunk driving resulting in death. After his release, he became a jobless drifter and tried to blackmail my uncle, Sun Shengan. The only reason Sun Shengan paid him was to make him repeat the accident and kill me. At first, Sun Shengan had been hesitant, but my relentless pursuit finally pushed him to take action. What he didn't know was that I had hired a private detective to gather evidence and installed surveillance cameras to monitor him. Once I had collected everything, including the video I had recorded at home, I handed it all over to the police. The police had been laying a trap, but because the case was old and their plan hadn't fully materialized, if I hadn't been attacked, they would have faced much lighter sentences than they deserved. I couldn't let that happen, so I deliberately goaded them into acting prematurely. Since I survived, they were caught red-handed. The driver was arrested on the spot, and Sun Shengan and his wife were charged with attempted murder. My aunt was also charged with an additional crime. She had gotten into a fight with Li Sisi, who was trying to run away with the money, causing Li Sisi to miscarry. Li Sisi was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment, while my aunt was taken to the police station. After their arrest, they initially refused to admit their crimes, but faced with the police's solid evidence, they eventually confessed, each trying to shift the blame onto the other. However, the evidence of my aunt bribing hospital staff was uncovered, and the accomplice confessed to the crime. In the end, they all received their due punishments. Sun Jianquan was imprisoned for economic crimes, and my uncle and aunt, due to the severity of their crimes and the multiple charges against them, were sentenced to life imprisonment. They appealed the verdict, but the second instance court upheld the original judgment. During the court session, they pointed at me and cursed, accusing me of destroying the Sun family and calling me a vicious girl who would surely meet with retribution. The judge ordered them to be quiet, and others also tried to stop their insults. But I looked at them with a clear gaze and retorted, "Aren't you facing retribution right now? What goes around comes around. This is exactly what you deserve." Once everything was settled, the first thing I did was put the villa up for sale. It held my parents' love, but it was also filled with the stains left by the villains. After selling it, I donated the money in my parents' name to support girls who couldn't afford to continue their education due to poverty. This gift from my parents, filled with their love, was now being passed on to other girls, hoping they would be surrounded by that love and have a brighter future. In addition, I cleaned up the company, getting rid of all the corrupt elements, safeguarding my parents' hard work. By eliminating the bad and introducing the new, the company's atmosphere improved significantly, and everything was finally on the right track. On a chosen day, I went to the cemetery. I burned the court verdict in front of my parents' grave. Despite the warm spring breeze and the bright sun, I felt a chill. I hugged their joint grave, looking at their photos on the tombstone, and my eyes welled up with tears. Before leaving, I kowtowed to them and forced a smile. You can rest in peace now. I'll be fine. As the cold wind blew through the cemetery, I realized that in this world I was now alone. But I wasn't afraid. My parents' love had accompanied me, and as long as I remembered, that love would never fade. So I would move forward bravely, for tomorrow would surely be a bright sunny day.